This is Crowned, a Smell Baseball podcast, Season 1, 1919. Say it ain't so. The Black Sox scandal. I'm your host, Mr. Baseball, inviting you on a journey back to one of the darkest, most dramatic chapters in baseball history. It's a story of greatness and greed, of a beloved game brought to its knees, and how baseball found a way to rise again. So let's step into our time machine and breathe in the dusty air of 1919, a year when the Chicago White Sox were kings of the diamond until they became the sport's fallen angels. Picture America in 1919. World War I has ended. The roaring 20s are about to begin, and baseball reigns as the national pastime. Fans pack the grandstands in flat caps and shirt sleeves, eager to forget their troubles for a few hours. In Chicago, the White Sox are a powerhouse, a team of heavy hitters and crafty pitchers favored to win the World Series. They'd been champions just 2 years earlier in 1917, and now in 1919, they had the talent to do it again. Their roster reads like an all-star roll call. Shoeless Joe Jackson, one of the greatest hitters alive. Pitcher Eddie Cicotte with his dancing shine ball. Lefty hurler Claude Lefty Williams. Buckling infielder Buck Weaver, and more. These Sox could play, and Chicago fans expected nothing less than a championship crown. Yet beneath the shiny surface of this juggernaut team, trouble was brewing. The players harbored a deep grudge against their owner, Charles Comiskey, a legendary tightwad. Comiskey was known for his miserliness. He'd built a top team, but kept their salaries low and cut corners at every turn. Thanks to baseball's infamous reserve clause, the White Sox players were essentially bound to the team with no real bargaining power or free agency. Comiskey took full advantage. There's a famous and perhaps exaggerated story that he was so cheap he made his players pay to launder their own uniforms. And when they refused, the team wore the same dirty uniforms until they turned black with grime. True or not, that tale earned them the ironic nickname the Black Sox, even before any scandal broke. The resentment in the clubhouse was real. The Sox felt underpaid, underappreciated, and fed up. In the shadows, a few players grumbled that maybe there was another way to score some real money. Now, baseball in 1919 had no commissioner and lacks oversight. It was governed by a national commission easily swayed by team owners. Into this void stepped gamblers, eager to exploit any disgruntled players. And the White Sox had more than a few. As the team clinched the American League pennant and a World Series date with the Cincinnati Reds, a group of Chicago players made a fateful choice. They agreed to fix the World Series, to deliberately lose in exchange for cash. It was an unprecedented scheme, the biggest heist in sports history, and it would forever tarnish the game. Who were the architects of this betrayal? The mastermind on the players' side was the Sox first baseman, Chick Gandil, a rough-and-tumble veteran who saw an opportunity to cash in. He roped in several teammates, pitcher Eddie Cicotte, outfielder Oscar Happy Felch, shortstop Swede Risberg, pitcher Lefty Williams, infielder Fred McMullen, and third baseman Buck Weaver. They even dragged in the reluctant superstar Shoeless Joe Jackson at the fringes of the plot. In total, eight men out, as they infamously would be called, a lineup of talent turning to the dark side. On the other side of this crooked deal were the gamblers. This was the age of prohibition gangsters and big-time bettors, and at the center lurked someone very notorious, Arnold Rothstein, a New York gambling kingpin rumored to be financing the fix. Rothstein would later be immortalized in fiction. You might recall F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, where a character based on Rothstein brags about rigging the World Series. Alongside Rothstein were gamblers like Sleepy Bill Burns, a former ballplayer himself, and others eager to profit from the Sox treachery. They promised the players a hefty sum. Reports vary, but figures around $100,000, astronomical for the time, were floated to ensure Chicago would lose to Cincinnati. It was a risky pact made in smoky back rooms and hotel rooms. As Mr. Baseball, I can't help imagining the scene in sepia tone. Gandil and his, I don't even know what sepia tone is, but let's go on. Gandil and his band of malcontents whispering with the gamblers in some dimly lit Chicago hotel bar, everyone looking over their shoulders. The deal was simple if sordid. The players would intentionally throw the World Series games, and the gamblers would reward them in cash, handed off in envelopes so fresh they still smelled of ink. To hardened ball players scraping by on meager salaries, it must have felt like stealing candy from a baby, or so they thought. Fast forward to October 1919. The World Series opens in Cincinnati under a hazy cloud of suspicion. It was the best-of-9 series that year. They briefly experimented with 9 games, much like in the earlier World Series, meaning the first to win 5 games would be champions. From the first pitch, things just felt off. On October 1, Game 1, ace Eddie Cicotte took the mound for Chicago. This is the moment of no return. The plan called for Cicotte to signal that the fix was on by hitting the very first Cincinnati batter with a pitch. Sure enough, after a token first pitch strike, Cicotte's second pitch plunked Reds leadoff hitter Maury Rath right in the back. That thud was the sound of baseball's soul being bruised. The signal was delivered. We're in. Fans in the stands had no clue, but those in on the fix knew the dirty deed was underway. Chicago proceeded to lose Game 1 in a disappointing fashion, with Cicotte unraveling on the mound. Whether by design or accident, he made errors, dropping a throw, misplaying bunts. The Reds won 9-1. In Game 2, Lefty Williams, another conspirator, pitched poorly, and the Sox lost again. By now, whispers of a fix were buzzing in gambling circles. Could it really be? Some observant reporters and fans noticed the uncharacteristic blunders by Chicago stars. But the others said, nah, the mighty White Sox are just choking under pressure, right? Interestingly, not every White Sox player was in on the plot that made the series schizophrenic. A few honest men on the team still fought to win, not knowing their teammates were betraying them. In Game 3, a young pitcher named Dickie Kerr, completely innocent of the fix, went out and threw a gem, leading the White Sox to actually win one. That must have thrown the gamblers into a fit. Chicago wasn't supposed to win. The corrupt players were caught in a bind. They wanted their money, but now the series stood at 2-1. The Fixers regrouped and lost games 4 and 5 to put the series on the brink of the title at 4-1. The stats from those games tell the tale. Hapless errors, unusually weak at-bats. Shortstop Swede Risberg, one of the conspirators, was practically useless with the bat. Only 2 hits and 25 at-bats in the series, and logged an alarming 4 errors in the field. Lefty Williams, supposed to be a top pitcher, ultimately went 0-3 with a 6.63 ERA, one of only 2 pitchers ever to lose 3 games in one World Series. If you knew